Hello. So SciManDan is going to take up the challenge, the duel I offered him about Mars. He told me it's scheduled for the 6th of July, so I'm looking forward to that. I like SciManDan. He's a cool guy. He's polite. I think he's wrong about quite a few things, but it'll be interesting because I think my impression of him from the videos that I watched is that he's both funny and quite fair, I think. So I don't know that that many people ask him to debunk their theories, but that's basically what I did. So we'll see how that goes. I don't remember the name of the number of the video. Actually, let me look it up so I can tell you what it was about if you're interested in that. And so that was one cool little bit of news. The other thing is that I've finally finished my little historical family emblem and a couple of pictures of my grandparents below it. And I'm just seeing it's probably slightly out of tilt, so I'm not gonna show it yet. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see what SciManDan comes up with as far as my theories on Mars go. And by the way, the video where I challenged him is just coming up now. Is number, let's have a look. It's number 11. So quite a while back, about a month ago. So if you're a SciManDan fan, and I think you should be, he's quite funny. He makes usually quite short videos, about 10-15 minutes. Basically taking apart flat earthers and so on. And some of them are really funny. But yeah, I don't think he's right about everything, but you know, we'll see. It's interesting anyway to talk with people that are open to a discussion anyway. And I actually had a couple of interesting conversations over the last week or so with some very, some intelligent people, different walks of life, different guys, different things. But it's quite astonishing to me how people that are quite smart, quite intelligent, quite capable in many areas of life can be quite blind about anything that sort of affects them personally. Or we were talking about the whole Brexit thing and so on, and weirdly enough, quite a few people that I know are all pretty much pro the Labour, lefty sort of liberal commies, dirty commies sort of stuff. It's quite a shock to me because I'm like, why would you even think of going that way, But nevertheless, it's quite a popular opinion apparently with some of the people I know. And I was trying to understand, well, what exactly, why do they think that way? And it invariably comes down to their own personal situation, which is astonishing to me because, let's say that a Brexit emperor comes in tomorrow and sort of says, right, all you dirty foreigners, bugger off. We don't want you here unless you were born and bred in England for the last 2 generations. Get the fuck out. That would personally affect me quite a lot, but I couldn't fault that way of thinking. I couldn't fault that reasoning because a person that is doing that would be looking after his own nation, his own co-nationals, and putting them first, which is essentially what a leader of a country is supposed to do, look after his own people first. And if all the Italians living outside of Italy were forced to go and live back in Italy, that would be an explosion, because I think there's over 60 million so-called Italians living outside of Italy, which is about the same as the population in Italy currently. And Italians are not really Italians. There's no such thing as an Italian. There's a Sicilian, there's an Abruzzese, there's a Venetian, there's a Piedmontese. And even then, you know, within the Piedmontese is, well, are you from Chieri or are you from Torino? You know, there's Valdostanis, there's 21 different regions. Each one has its own dialect. If you just speak dialect between two different regions of Italy, it's not uncommon for them not to be able to understand each other at all. So it's somewhat mysterious to me how, you know, people can be so blind to objective reality. And yet, you know, I shouldn't be surprised. I believe it's Aristotle about 2,500 years ago that mentioned the fact that most people are only affected and can only do rhetoric. They can't do dialectic. They can't change their mind based on facts. They only change their minds based on feelings, emotions, and what affects them personally at an emotional level. There's a very interesting guy called Texarkana, which has been run off the internet. Literally, he was warned to get off the internet, and he did. So I don't want to create any problems for him. Some of his stuff is archived. But he had a very interesting theory. I don't know what his job was. I don't know how he got to the stuff, but he wrote some pretty in-depth articles about Neanderthals compared to Homo Sapiens. And his overall generic conclusion was that the reason that Neanderthals got wiped out by Homo Sapiens was not because they were in any way inferior intellectually. In fact, quite the opposite. He was saying Neanderthals were more evolved, they did have a larger cranial capacity, were more individualistic, and were capable of thinking correctly and adapting on the basis of facts. While the Cro-Magnon / Homo sapiens types were more like, you know, bugmen, somewhat incapable of thinking, you know, independently, and thus essentially being kind of like zombies. And I mean, we see that now, right? I mean, boomers and millennials. I mean, I don't know if that's not a zombie apocalypse. I don't know what is. And they just kind of trudge along without any real thought. You know, all you have to do is shout like, you know, veganism, oxygen layer, you know, weather, climate change, veganism, climate change, the bears, we're losing the bears, melting ice caps, and you know, capitalism bad. That's it. You've now got a horde of zombies that will practically go towards whatever objective you point them in. And you know, it's very cynical. The people that are directing these creatures, you know, like Soros, I believe know exactly what they're doing. And by the way, if you've ever seen Soros, you know, an ex-Nazi collaborator, evil incarnate, you know, that old bastard is being kept alive probably by pacts with demons. I wouldn't even think that's a joke, honestly. And just look at their eyes. You can see these people are absolutely scum of the earth. There was another guy whose name I can't pronounce because it lacks a bunch of vowels. Zabrinsky or something like that. Raw evil. I mean, and this guy was like on all sorts of boards and UN Council, I think. And it's just... And then you look at the policies they try to implement and the stuff they try and do. And it's a complete global homo takeover, you know. So, and yet there's intelligent people, capable people that, you know, have decent jobs, that just seem to be incapable of thinking logically. You know, they're very capable in their work, they're very capable in many spheres of life, perhaps in their relationships and so on, but apparently unable to think, you know, to the point that one guy asked me, do you believe in such a thing as radicalized Islam? And I said, yeah, of course. You know, they do radicalize young men, you know. He says, well, what about, do you believe in radicalized Western people that in the West that can become radicalized? And I said, yeah, anybody is open to being radicalized because it's indoctrination, you know. And indoctrination is... anybody's susceptible to it, you know. I mean, the Nazis were the pioneers of that sort of propaganda, but it's been perfected since then. And, you know, there's some people say, I don't believe in hypnosis. It doesn't matter whether you believe in hypnosis or not. Hypnosis believes in you, you know. It's like saying, I don't believe in sunshine, you know. It's kind of irrelevant. But and he said, "Oh, do you think that you're being radicalized?" So, very roundabout, very English sort of polite way of saying, "Oh, do you think that you're being brainwashed into believing all sorts of radical right-wing stuff?" And I'm like, buddy, if anything, I'm softening in my old age, because you should have asked my opinion when I was 18. And he did also mention that he thought that, because I mentioned to him a little when he said that, I said, well, you remind me of my old karate instructor, an old karate instructor of mine when we went to Japan with the karate team. The trains in Japan said, like, arrival 19 minutes 28 seconds, and the first time I saw that, I thought, look at these Japs, 28 seconds, fuck off. 28 seconds the train arrived, bing, doors opened on 28, not 29, not 27, 28, ping, doors open. I'm like, wow, must have been a coincidence. And it happened at every train station. So I was like, all right. And inside the tubes, inside the Japanese metropolitan, there's not a graffiti, all the chairs are clean, everything's clean. And my karate instructor, looking around, goes, wow, look at this, hey, compared to, like, say, the tube in London or New York, not one graffiti anywhere to be seen. And I was just standing next to him, listening to what he said, and I just made a normal comment. What was a normal comment for me? I said, yeah, people who do that should be shot. And he looked at me and goes, what did you say? What did you mean? I said, people who do graffiti, just line them up against the wall and shoot them. If you do it to a few hundred of them, the rest will stop. And he just sort of open-mouthedly sort of stared at me for a couple of seconds, and then sort of said, your politics are slightly to the right of Genghis Khan's, aren't they? And so I mentioned this, and the guy I was having a conversation with said, oh no, I think compared to you, Genghis Khan was a damn socialist. So I sort of thought, I don't know where that comes from, I mean, but there you go. And it's quite astonishing to me, because I hold my positions for very logical reasons. But then again, like my grandfather, who's some of his pictures I'm looking at now, as he said, after he asked me to talk to him about the book I wrote, The Face on Mars, and I told him the whole story, he listened intently for a couple of hours, asked 2 or 3 very pertinent questions, and he was 92 at the time, completely compos mentis, and in fact anticipated where I was going by asking those 3 questions. And I said, I'm coming to that. Understood the whole thing, and when I finished, he was like, I think you're born a couple of 100 years too early. Most people won't be able to understand what you're talking about there. You're right, but it's not going to work out. They're not going to know what the hell you're talking about for another couple of 100 years. And I sort of thought, damn, here I was thinking I might struggle to explain it to the guy. He took it all in. Keep in mind, he was born in 1907, right? I mean, when he was born, there was no cars. So, and amazing man, that he could take all of that in, process it, understand it, process it intelligently, and conclude pretty much correctly, So I suppose there's that to think about, but it is quite astonishing to me. I never fail to be somewhat surprised by the common internet acronym MPAI. Most people are idiots, and I suppose I can't remember who, some famous guy said, no one has ever lost money by assuming that people are dumb. It's just kind of, a little bit disheartening. But that said, you should never lose heart. In fact, there's a column I wrote for Men of the West, which I think is menofthewest.com or .net, I can't remember, .com I think. And it's called Rome Has Fallen. And it's basically about the complete collapse of the original Catholic Church and how it's now a remnant. And what presents or purports to be the Catholic Church now is really the Novus Orco Church, the new orcs. And they've totally subverted and taken over the actual Catholic Church. They've taken over the buildings, the possessions, and with fake clerics and so on. Again, you know, I've discussed this before. It's video number 1 and number 3, I think, 1 and 3, something like that, where I discuss the church and so on. And I'm also creating a little documentary, you know, nothing fancy. It's going to be very sort of homemade type documentary about the Catholic Church and the real Catholic Church. So I'm hoping to have that out eventually. Just finishing the introduction and working with a guy who's doing just the basic stuff, some of the titles and so on. So that should be a little bit more in depth in terms of why I say what I say about the Catholic Church, although it is obvious to anybody who A, can do logic, B, can read, C, is willing to read and actually reads the documentation. A really good starting point for that is a website called canon188.com, the About page. If you go in the About page, and then there's links in there which explain the, you know, the canon law and so on. And I had, you know, it's really interesting how the gammas come along, because I had another little wave, and I just put them all in the metaphorical mass grave of YouTube comments, and just delete their existence, ban them from the channel, and without any bothering to respond. But it's quite interesting how their tactics just never ever change. The pattern is the same. It's sort of like, you know, they try and frenemy you, you know, like friend enemy you. It's like, well, you speak honestly but not truthfully, you know, this is the correction, and you're not right about this, because you seem to say that the Catholic Church is not the Catholic Church based on just a couple of things in the Vatican II documents talking about an ecumenical council. Absolute lies. So, and you wonder, you know, are these people so stupid that they think I don't know what I wrote, said, and read? Or are they doing it to try and fool the average person who just skims over the comments and gets an impression from it? Why would you get an impression from some random idiot on the internet making a random comment? Wouldn't you rather at least look at a video of the guy talking, research it? You know, if you disagree with something he says, go and find out. If you do agree, go and find out, because, you know, maybe he's lying, maybe he's got it wrong. It's amusing to me how these little gammas carry on. But anyway, I do think that the internet has created a disease that allows these idiots to spread their stupidity, and it's somewhat infectious, obviously. You know, in the good old days, pre-internet, an idiot like that would have been, you know, smacked in the head at school by a couple of the bullies, maybe put inside one of the lockers for a while, and he would have learned to keep his stupidity to himself, because no one cares. But it's the internet, so idiocy abounds, and that's why I don't bother to engage with it. So yeah, that's basically it. Relatively short video for me anyway. Once I've gotten all the straight, you know what, I'm sort of tempted to show you anyway, but I'll wait for the family crest thing to all be lined up properly, and then I'll maybe show you in the next video or so if I remember. That's it for now, just a short one, and yeah, there's a bunch of stuff I want to cover, but I kind of want to do it in a little bit more detail, so I'll wait until I've got a little bit more time, because just family commitments at the moment are taking up a lot of time, and a couple of writing things I need to do, book I need to get out. So I'll try and make a couple of short ones if I get a chance, rather than a big long one. That's it for today.